Well, hello everyone. So we are here in this session to see how we can work with XML data using VB scripting, and I'm going to use QTP platform for doing this. But it's a very much I'm going to write is a VB script code. 90% of it, 95% of it is VB scripting. I'm just using QTP to perform some very basic task like reading from data tables and all. You can use it and plug in into different systems other than QTP also. So by and large, we are using VB scripting to read XML. So XML, what are XMLs? XMLs are data files that store a lot of data, obviously, because it's a platform of data which is, you can plug in with Unix systems, you can plug it with Windows system, and it still holds its consistency. So this is a simple XML file, sample XML file. You can see it is containing the main tag as the parent tag as the breakfast menu, so it is going to contain the information of breakfasts. This entire file, this entire tags, you can see the food items here: food 1, food 2, name, price, descriptions. These name, price, these are tags, their value is inside those tags. And then we have here description, which is a tag which is also containing an attribute called calories. As you can see, its value is also here, 900. So what basically we are going to do in this session is we are going to read this data from this sample XML file. So what exactly are we going to do? So we have to break down this problem of reading XML data into one reusable, repeatable function that I'm going to build, that is going to be a common function to read. Either I want to read data from this tag, Belgian underscore waffles, or I want to read this price, 7.95 price, from this tag. So I just have to know what all things I need to know to read either this or this out of this XML file. So I need to know this path. So my software or my program has to know this path. It has to know that this file is containing XML data, and it is going to need to know which tag I'm going to read. So each of these tags that we see here, like say price, so this is containing an XPath. It is having a very unique XPath attached to it, which will be breakfast underscore menu, inside it food 1, and inside it price. So let me show you what my problem statement is. So read XML, as I was mentioning. So what all operations I can perform in reading? I could read a node value, which is at this path, breakfast underscore menu food 2 name, breakfast underscore menu food 2 name. Or I could be reading a node attribute for the same sample XML file, and the path this time is breakfast underscore menu food 1 description. So this is the tag XPath, and then I have to mention which attribute I'm going to work with. One tag could have multiple attributes. There could be another attribute, right, of this description tag. So I'm going to explain to you how we can use a single point of function in VBscript, which is going to only require these inputs, these 4 inputs, and it's going to give me data. Where it's going to give me data? Now QTP at runtime is going to put the output in this column, output value column, right? So let me very quickly go to my QTP. I'm going to open a new test, going to name it XML Read Write test, just say, in fact, just say read test. Okay, then going to create. I'm going to say no for the previous one. So because I'm here using external Excel files to store all this information, so I first have to read from this Excel sheet. So I'm going to do a couple of declarations of the parameters I'm going to use. So here I have str read Excel sheet name. Then I'm going to have to declare all these are my parameters, will be parameters for my function. So I'm going to declare them. Str opt will be my operation. Str source file. Str node path. Str attribute. These are my 4 inputs, and then I'm going to use a random function also, a randomizer function also, when I'm going to save the output. That's something very specific to the function the platform I'm using to store my output, but you can choose not to use it also. This is so my declarations are done, right? These will be the declarations. Now we are on to initializations. What all we are going to initialize? We are going to initialize whatever we have declared. So read Excel sheet name will be this name here. This is read XML. Read XML. Then I'm going to I'm gonna have to, I cannot directly, communicate with this sheet. So either I could create a connection, or I could just add a sheet, to read from this Excel whatever data I want to read. So here I'm just going to import this Excel sheet. If you're working with VB scripting, purely VB scripting, you could choose to create a database connection. You can search on Google for that and then read from the external Excel sheet, or you could use hardcode values as and when you're required. So I'm going to add this sheet in this QTP, then I'm going to import it. I have to mention the path. This is the only hard-coded value I'm going to use here. So I'm going to copy this path from here. .xlsx, could be XLS in your case, whatever you please like. Then I'm done. I'm very much done with my initialization. So now my statements of my program, or the logic I have implemented. Your logic could be different, but that's up to you. total read opt is equal to data table dot get sheet dot get row count, because what I'm reading the row count because I'm going to iterate through all of these, all the entries that are present for reading an XML in this Excel sheet, and I'm going to perform, and I'm going to put my output in output value column in a single for loop. So that's what I'm going to do here. It's always a good practice to keep mentioning in your code that which row you're working with when, and which sheet you're working with when. Set current row would be the row of this counter in the for loop, and then my main code starts. So I'm going to now read all these of my parameters from the Excel sheet. Gonna do data table dot value, then so what is my column name? My column name is right here. So it's just a copy paste. I'm copying the column names because they have to match with the column names of this Excel sheet because I'm importing it. So now I'm down to the business end of my program. So now that I have the input in my QTP from this input Excel sheet of read XML, now I have to create the business logic of reading. So the way I like to work is I like to put whatever is non-specific to a QTP code, I like to put them in certain VBscript files. So what we are going to do is we're going to add a function library. So we are going to create new function library, VBscript file, read XML. I'm going to mention .vbs. You could create QFL also, text also, any which way you want. This file, now it's going to have the code. So again, I'm going to start with declarations, I'm going to do dim str error. That's just a error handler I like to use in my code when I code. And I'm going to create the function. This is a utility function, so I'm going to prefix it with util underscore get value XML. So it's a very generic name because it's going to perform a very generic operation, which is reading from XML files. Seems like a typo. Str operation. All these 4 parameters that I used here, I could just have to just pass by reference to the function util underscore get value XML. So I'm doing that right now. Str file path str node path str attribute name stem. So what are we going to need to create at the declaration label in this function? We are going to create an object of XML document, so that we need. Then we are going to create an object of a node. Yeah, so let me just create some declarations that are important. They're going to be used in this function, generic function. So I'm even going to create some error handlers that I mentioned. So I'm just suppressing the QTP errors in this function here. I'm clearing out all the previous errors. And I'm going to suppress this statement that I'm writing here, on error resume next. So this statement, what it does is it suppresses the QTP's own error handler classes, and it on top of it allows the programmer to write his own custom code to handle errors at runtime errors, not the compilation errors or something, just the runtime errors. Just so now down to the real thing. Now I'm creating an object for obj XML doc. S would be give it more visibility, and then we do create object Microsoft. Microsoft.xml DOM. So what this statement does is it creates, seems like a complicated statement, but all it does is creates a COM object between VBscript process and XML process. Then what kind of connection are we going to use? So I'm going to have to create set some properties for the connections I want to create. So what I'm going to do is tell it that I'm using a asynchronous or synchronous connection. So I'm going to say asynchronous false because QTP requires a continuous synchronous connection for it to communicate. So this establish a synchronous connection. Then what we are going to do, we're going to load the XML file. So how we are going to load? We're going to use this str file path parameter. We're going to use all these parameters now. So we're going to do XML obj XML doc dot load, which is a function of this object com object that I've just created, and then I'm going to load this with this file path. Then because I have declared use this operations logic, which allows me to use the same function to perform either a node value operation, read node value operation, or read node attribute operation. So I'm going to use a if or a select logic here, select case. So if my case str operation is a certain value, then do this, and if it is the other value, then do that. So that logic, that branch logic, I'm going to use here. So let's just say it branching of code to handle different operations by same function. This what it does is it gives me more, this makes my code more generic. I have the same function, I write it once, and I have the same logical function that I could plug into anywhere, any framework, and this would work. So this is going to give me a lot of flexibility. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to write read, so whatever is here, basically read node value, but I'm going to put it into uppercase because I didn't want my comparison to be case sensitive. So I'm going to say read node value. What I do here, I'll just show you. For that, let me complete this. This next case statement will be read node attribute. Read node what do we do here? We create a set object node, this that we just declared, and we say dot select node, and then we use this node path or the x path that we just passed to this function. So let me very quickly copy paste this here, and then what we do, we have the node, we have the, but what this gives us, this select nodes function, sorry, it is going, should be nodes, yeah. So what this gives us, it gives us an array of all the matches of this x path. So let me very quickly show you what this does. Right now I've passed it breakfast underscore menu food, and I've passed it price. But what if this food 1 and food 2 were not food 1 food 2, they were just food and food? In that case, I have multiple entries of the same XPath, and then what I have to use is when I use select nodes and I pass breakfast underscore menu slash food as the XPath, and I use this function, what will happen? It will give me an array of a collection of all these food tags. So right now I am working with unique XPaths, but in case you are working with multiple values of the same XPath, you will get a collection of all the XPaths that you passed here with in the node path as a parameter here. So you get a collection. So how can you work with collections? You have to use indexes. So in this case, I know that it's a unique value, so I'm working with a unique XPath. So I will only get one entry, which will be at collection number 0, and then I say text. So this will give me whatever is present in this path. Which path? This path. Breakfast food to name. Breakfast food to name. So I will get this text out of this node. Next is read node attribute. Set obj node. But just to be on the safe side, for this one, when you're dealing with attributes, you cannot do it with collections. So in that case, you have to work with a unique tag name. So if I'm getting an attribute, I have to clearly specify that I'm working with this tag, description tag. So I have to pass a unique XPath to it. So in those cases, when I'm dealing with a unique XPath, I can use select single node, which is another method of this very useful object that I have created here, comma object. So what do we do here? We pass same str node path. This is going to return a single node value, and then my return value will be node dot get attribute, and then I pass the name of this attribute. So if I'm dealing with, let's say I want to get this attribute, so I have to pass the XPath till description, and then the next I need to know this attribute name, so it is calories. So what I have given here, I have passed this description for food1 as my xnode path, and I have mentioned attribute name as calories, which was blank here because I wasn't working with a node attribute, but I have to mention it here. Now in the end, my function has to return some value because it's the get function, so it will return str at value in the end. But I was also implementing my own error handling, so I will just write a piece of code in between, which is not mandatory for you guys, but just the way I like to work. So I will mention here if any errors occurred during this operation, my error dot number class will be having some value. If it is not having some value, it will be a pass. But if some error is there, then this error.number property will be something other than 0. So that means some error occurred during these operations. So how do you handle it is up to you. For me, I will just say str error will be equal to error occurred in this function during operation str operation in node str node path and percentile node path. Percentile of file. So I will mention, I don't have the file name, I will just mention and percentile and the file path. It's a long message, but it will help me debug where the problem is. It will be very descriptive rather than subjective. It's up to you how you handle this. I'm just going to say, right, for time being, message box print str error. It's always a good practice to concatenate it with the previous error. Previous error could be anything, and we haven't handled the default case scenario, which could also give us the error. Help me debug. Invalid case value passed. So what's left here? Yes, very important and something we should never forget is deinitialization. It's very important to clear out the memory. Whatever you have created in the runtime memory, you must clear it out before executing out of a function. So I'll say put this obj node is equal to nothing, and another object that I used is XML doc object. I'll say put this also is equal to nothing, and then I return the value and I get out of the function. Go to my action again, and so what is left here is I should call that function now. Str return is equal to this function name, then pass all these parameters, comma. Just like to use this because I don't like typo errors. Oops, but it can create its own errors, like you see here. I have copy pasted and I have screwed up here. So pass this attribute here. We have passed all the 4 parameters. In case I send a blank value from here, it will be blank. And yeah, one more important thing, it's always a good practice to trim these values. You never know what is coming from the Excel sheet. Usually a lot of people deal with external Excel sheets, but as a QTP person you must trim these values out. Right. So what else is left? Yes, we have to fill this column, right? This output value column. Now how do we do that? We just say data table dot value. We are already inside this for loop, and we have set a row number here, and we mention output value, and just very particular about the indentations also for the readability of code. Then we put it as str return. This must already be sending a trim value. If it's not, again I will trim it. If I trim it there, I don't need to trim here. Then I need to export it out. I'm going to use a random variable. I'm going to say randomize so my random numbers don't repeat in every execution. And then I use that logic. So I need to export the data table. Data table dot export sheet. I only need to export a sheet, right? So I just say t \. I can just copy from here. So this is just a way I'm storing the results. Now you could be storing your results at any proprietary way that you are using in your system, but for the time being I'm putting these results in these Excel sheets here. So if you can see, these are result underscore some value, some random value, so that it doesn't override the previous results. Score, I say use end percentile, and my str random value will be something like this. See, str should be a string, should be an integer. Then I say 1000 times into random. Then I concatenate it to my file name, and percentile dot xls could be an xlsx also. So are we done? Yeah, one more thing. We just mentioned the path. Now we need to mention which file we are exporting, because I've used export sheet. So this is going to export this Excel sheet now with the updated output value to this. So this is going to export this sheet to this path with the updated output value. So might have missed out something. I might have. Let me just quickly run this test and see if we have made any mistakes, or are we all good. Should be all good. Let's hope. Hoping for the best. Let me quickly close it because don't save, and yeah, we can click on run. Now this we may or may not close, doesn't matter. We are only opening it asynchronously, and yeah, let me run it. So do we get any errors? Yep, immediately an error comes. Wrong number of arguments or invalid property assignment. Yeah, yes, we haven't mentioned the sheet name here. So we will need to mention the source sheet as well as the destination sheet. This is going to create an instance of this XLS in the QTP right here. Did we associate that function library? I don't think we associated. Yes, that's why we are getting this error. So what I did was I created an VBscript file, which is this, but I didn't associate it with my test. Let me very quickly do that. Read XML, convert the path, yes, save. Let me run it again. Hopefully we are all good this time. Is it? Yeah, I think so. Did. So let me very quickly see the results, QTP results, as well as my exported Excel sheet also. So this is not going to say because I haven't used the reporter class of QTP, but we can still see whatever runtime data here. We can see our output value was filled. This was empty before, and it is still empty in my input file. If I open my input file, it was this one. This is still empty here, output value, but it is filled here, and because of my logic of exporting this results, I have created my result repository here. So where it is exported might be present here. Let me sort it out. Probably this one or this one. Yeah, this one. See, this is my output value. So this is just the way we read XML files. In the next session we'll get to know how we can write or append XML files. We are going to use the same logic. We are going to create a single point of function with operations as a branching logic of our code, and then we are going to use the same function to append XML data with we are going to clone nodes. We are going to write new nodes inside a parent node in the XML, and we are going to work with XMLs. We are going to really get to the bottom of it. Thank you for attending the session. Have any questions, you can post it here.